Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keel's Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com.
Helping you build freedom without losing your edge. This is the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels.
There are so many reasons that I love to be able to host this podcast. Every single day, I have the opportunity to speak with some of the most amazing, impactful leaders around the globe, and not just leaders in the corporate world, leaders after the corporate world, and leaders at home, and all of these types of things. And guess what? Today is absolutely no different, because the guest that is going to be sharing knowledge with you today is not only a global leader, a board executive with business, management, and leadership experience across disciplines such as sales, consulting, and even ecosystem alliances. So I like, when you're watching the video version, you won't even believe it, but like during 3+ decades of corporate life, he served in roles as a global vice president responsible for regional revenue targets across North America, Europe, and even Asia Pacific, consistently speaking with and advising Fortune 50 clients across a number of geographies, as well as some of them even revenues of up to 15+ billion US dollars. He was an innovator in the corporate world, also co-founding networks such as the Black Employee Network, which I'm sure he's going to tell us more about in one of his corporate experiences. And he continues to be active in both community and professional development. And he's known for his servant as well as empathetic leadership. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the global business leader, board member, and angel investor, none other than the founder of Dion Graham Consulting, Mr. Dion Graham. Welcome to the show, Dion.
Good afternoon, Billy. I had to check to make sure I'm on the right podcast.
Can you believe it? Yes, you are. You absolutely are. And I just scratched the surface. That's the whole thing. I just scratched the surface. I love it. I love it.
To your podcast. This is fantastic. I look forward to having the conversation, and hopefully your listeners can gain something from it.
You know what? I have absolutely no doubt. I feel the privilege of being able to know you, and I know that there are so much that you have done, so many different facets of life, not just life during corporate, life after corporate, life, family life, and there's so many different lessons that we will be able to learn, glean, and put into actual practical application based on the conversation that we're going to have. So there's no pressure here. You know what? There's even going to be less pressure, because I would love for you, because I kind of scratched the surface, told a little bit of the story, but I would really love for you to share with me and share with the Going Long family, Dion, more about some of the different decisions that you made to get to this point in your journey. And then based on what you share, how you share, and kind of the way in which you share, then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there. Does that work for you?
That's fantastic. Hey, let's get started, and you just tell me where, go left, go right.
There you go. All right, over to you. Backstory, please.
So I'm originally from Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles. I would say relatively modest upbringing. Neither of my parents had an opportunity of going to college. My father went to high school, then he was drafted. He served in the Korean War. Then he came out and worked as a machinist. And my mother was, in essence, really forced to drop out of high school to get a job to help the family just maintain. And then she ended up working for the state of California for 40+ years before retiring. But they both, growing up, had a big emphasis on their kids and me and my siblings of going to college and getting their education and hopefully having a better opportunity. And so I had an opportunity. I went to San Diego State University, graduated there, and then my first job out of college was in manufacturing at Hughes Aircraft. They made the radar systems that went into all the fighter jets. And so I worked in manufacturing, and doing that, I got a chance to rotate into a lot of different disciplines, into inventory management, quality, master scheduling, a lot of areas I knew nothing about. And so did that for a couple of years, really began to understand the manufacturing process, the different disciplines. And then from there, I was there for 4 years, and then from there I moved to a blood plasma product company in the IT department. They were deploying a ERP system, QAD ERP system. So I worked in IT and helped deploy that system for a couple of years. And then from that job, I got recruited into a company called SAP. And this was back in the early 90s in the US. Nobody, including myself, had ever heard of SAP, knew much about SAP. And it was this German software company that had this innovative client server ERP platform. And so because of my experience both in manufacturing, coupled with deploying an ERP system with QAD, they had interest in me. And so that's when I started my 30-year run with SAP. I had no intention of staying with SAP for 30 years. My plan was when I took the job, I knew that it was going to be about 70% travel because I was in consulting. And the plan was I would work there for a year and get this new bonus that they were offering that my previous companies were not offering. And me and my wife would use that as a down payment. We would buy a house and then move on. But 30 years later, I still was at SAP, which was a fantastic experience. I started off in their consulting organization, implementing the ERP 3.1 all the way up to, I think, 4.7. And then from that, I moved into a solution management role because I was working with customers and they were consistently communicating additional requirements and functions that they wanted deployed in the software. And so that gave me an opportunity to travel to Waldorf, Germany, and meet with the development team and communicate those business requirements that were coming from a lot of large SAP customers in North America. And so that turned into a solution management role. And so I later took on a role of launching one of SAP's product, SRM. If you talk to a lot of SAP people, they would probably associate my name with SRM. I was the original launch of that product and end up leading the SRM Global Solution Management Organization for a number of years. And then I spent a couple of years in our alliance organization working with our global service partners, the Accentures and Deloittes and PwCs and IBMs on how to drive the SAP strategy globally through their organization. And then I returned back to really my passion of source to pay and procurement and supply chain in a field organization. So I in essence, became part of the extended SAP sales organization, really communicating directly with customers, the solution, how to use the solution, the roadmap, the capabilities, how we differentiate from our competitors, which I really enjoy. And so my last 15 years or so with SAP had been more in a field, center of excellence, line of business space, really supporting and driving the SAP line of business procurement, which became part of Ariba. And SAP acquired Ariba in 2012. And then in 2024, I was not planning, but SAP offered this early retirement package for certain employees that qualified based on criteria. And I was one of those employees. And initially, I was not planning to take the package because I enjoyed my job. I had a fantastic team, global team that were just phenomenal experts. I worked for a fantastic boss. I was enjoying my job. And so I had no intention of retiring until I saw the package. Once I saw the package, there's a lot of equity in those 30 years. So it made no sense. It made no sense for me not to. Part of my job, we would do business cases for clients and really trying to articulate to the client the value and the benefit of deploying a technology to, eliminate wasteful processes, et cetera. And so for me, when I looked at the package that was offered, the business case really just made no sense not to accept. So I accepted that in April 2024. So 18 months into retirement now, and I hadn't planned for it, wasn't looking forward to it, but it's been fantastic. So I've enjoyed every bit of it, and sometimes things happen for the right time, and you just may not know, and you just have to go forward with it. So a little background there.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and also the way in which you share it, right, in a very transparent way. And so there's a couple of different questions that I actually am really interested in. There's the part where you're asking about, or where you're sharing with us the early retirement. I have my thoughts on that. Number one, but I believe there's so much that happens at the genesis of every story. And one of the things that you shared was you started the story in California, in LA, and you talked about your dad and you talked about your mom, neither of them having had the opportunity to have a college education. But you shared some of what they shared with you. And just right off the bat, I'm just really, really curious as to what you learned at home, how much of what you either learned or saw in terms of your parents working, right? Because I've got a very similar story in that neither one of my parents actually went. My mom went to college, didn't finish. Dad never went to college. But what you saw at home, the words that you heard, how that affected a portion of your identity once you made it to the corporate world.
Oh yeah, wow, yeah, significant. Yeah, a couple examples. At an early age, my mother taught me consistently the value of a dollar, or realistically, the value of a penny.
Yeah.
So, I was very well grounded by my parents in really understanding the value of money and material things. So growing up as a kid, that was always played sports, football, basketball year round. An example is when I was young, I wanted the Converse. That was the tennis shoes that, all the athletes wore, and that was cool. And the Converse cost more than from kids, My mother said, well, we're going to get the kids until you get a job. And once you get a job and earn money, you can decide if you want to pay the extra money for the Converse. So those were lessons that were, I would say, instilled in me at an early age, of really just understanding the value of a dollar, understanding when you make money, saving money, how you're going to spend that money, when you're going to spend that money, what are the things that you're going to spend that money on. That's something that I take with me today, and I learned that all the way through my corporate experience, and that, I will say, also prepared me to be able to take the early retirement package, because consistently all the way through my career, I've always made sure that we lived below our means. We lived significantly less than what our total income was coming in, right? That was carried all the way through, of making sure that we minimize and reduce as much expense, particularly recurring expense, and the gap that we save or we invest, and we make sure that rainy day or that period comes where, that income may not be there, and we have something set aside. So that will be one lesson. I would say the other lesson is, if I look at my father, who I said was a machinist, and, he would work, and, he was an hourly employee, and he worked 6:30 to 4 or 3:30 or whatever it was. As I said, I grew up playing sports. I played football, basketball, baseball, and had the opportunity to play football a couple of years in college. And throughout my sport, won't say career, but my while I was playing sport, I don't think my father missed a single game, a single football game, basketball game, baseball game. And in fact, when I played high school, when I played football in high school, the high school I went to, we didn't have lights. So
Mm.
our games were on Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon. And so during the fall, my father would go to his boss and say, "Hey, look, my son plays football on Friday afternoons, and I got to be at those games. So,
Mm.
I'll come in on Saturday, or I'll come in early or whatever." And so his boss, gave him that liberty, like, "Hey, yes, if that's important to you, we'll work around and make sure that happens." So for me,
Mm.
throughout my corporate career, there were opportunities that, if I really wanted to push, I could probably have elevated and moved to more roles or additional roles or higher roles, if you will.
Mm.
And in many cases, I made the choice not to pursue that because because of the importance of my family. I have twin daughters, and so when I looked at some of those roles, or I looked at people that was in those roles, and I looked at the time constraints that they had for some of the things that they may want to do, the pressures that came along with those, the
Mm.
expectation, the time away from family, the choices where you really didn't have a choice to do those things. In many cases, I made a decision that that wasn't as important as being able to kind of set my own schedule and have those priorities where I want to make sure that I'm present. So that would be a lesson. I would say not that I heard from my father, but a lesson that I saw from my father. So that I wanted to emulate.
And so that's, whether you're learning the value of opinion or you're also learning by observing and then emulating that when you have the opportunity to do it. Those are the kinds of impacts that, unless we're really reflecting on it, we don't recognize how much what happens at home later on can play out in the identity that we see in our corporate lives. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. The other thing that you mentioned, actually, there's another question I want to ask you, but I'll wait to ask you, and hopefully I'll remember to ask you because a lot of it has to do with the space in which you worked. No, I'll ask you now. See, this is what happens when you're running the podcast. You have so many amazing things that you want to share, but you talk to us about the space that you worked in. That really it talks to the expense line of most major companies that you're working for. You also were very cognizant of the fact that in your home, you knew what money was coming in, and you made an intentional decision to live below your means. I wonder how much of what you saw at work and for very large multi-billion euro and dollar companies, right? How much of that also came home and helped you make decisions? Because I look at them as transferable skills, right? Helped you to have a quality of life at home as well.
Yeah, I would say actually probably the reverse.
The reverse, okay.
I would say, I learned the discipline of expense management early age at home, right?
Gotcha.
And I'm one of those, maybe I'm unique, maybe I'm not, but I'm one of those that every second of the day, my checkbook is to the penny. I know exactly what's in the checkbook. If I go buy something, and most of the time it's on the ATM or in my card, make sure I get a receipt. By the time I'm home, I'm recording that expense, I'm putting it in there. I know exactly every single day, what's there. And so part of that is, that's kind of the first step, right? Of like, kind of talk to clients about like, hey, do you know what your spend is, right? And many times you know that. So for me, that expense management of one, tracking and knowing exactly what your expenses are, knowing what your budget is, how much income you have coming in, and then, hey, where can I reduce those expenses or eliminate those expenses? So when companies start coming out and start bundling, like, hey, we're providing you internet service and we're providing you cable service and we're providing you whatever, we're going to bundle and give you a discount. I was thinking about that a long time ago, right? I was like, hey, how can I get this expense line reduce some? How can I cut back on this, right? How can I eliminate some of these expenses, So, for example, when it comes to purchasing cars, I saw cars more as a liability, that the value of the car, once you purchase, is going to go down, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, how can I pay that thing off as soon as possible? And then when that thing is paid off, yeah, I'm going to be driving a 10 or 15-year-old car.
And that's okay.
Oh, I'm winning now, right? I'm driving the car and I'm not paying for it. I'm winning. So I would say, for me, I kind of had that discipline. And so
Mhm.
that's where, the job that I had for so many years really wasn't that difficult, because
Mhm.
it's really just applying that same principle to businesses.
Mhm.
Particularly, hey, you're purchasing goods and services, right? There's ways that you can be more strategic about how you're purchasing these. Are you buying them under contract? Are you negotiating? Are you getting the best price with the suppliers? All of those type of things. So I would say for me, it was more natural. I kind of had that discipline, and then
Mhm.
in my role, it just made so much sense of how would you apply this to much larger enterprises that are spending a whole lot more money.
Excellent. So that's helpful, right? Because once again, it's about the transferable skill. It's about what you are, what you see at home, you're taking to the office. What you take to the office, you can also see at home. So it's just, and these are many times we forget it, the more that I work with clients that are, in big companies all day, every day, and trying to figure out, well, what can I do next? Well, it's like, well, okay, well, what are you already doing?
Yeah.
And really recognize, because so few times we stop to really recognize what is the transferable skill that we have. One of the other things that you mentioned, Dion, is that you, like me, many years I used to, like, on my LinkedIn profile, I used to say, like, happy corporate employee, like it was there. And people were like, Billy, you got a happy corporate employee on your LinkedIn? I'm like, well, yeah, because I really enjoyed my corporate experience. Like, it was a good one. It allowed me to travel to over 80 countries. It allowed me to, meet some people that I would have never met, being a, working class kid from Columbus, Ohio. Just, it was good to me. I was good to corporate. But you also, so you mentioned that, right? You had a positive corporate experience. You had this opportunity that SAP provided you in terms of being able to, quote unquote, retire early. But there must have been some points in your over 3 decades that you thought to yourself, "Wow, you know what? I've got these skills, and there's potentially something else that I could be doing." Um, I would, because now you're on the other side of it. Like, what was your thought process? Because there's so many people. I mean, you and I know a lot of people that are going through these kinds of things. Like, what was your unique path when you thought about you're enjoying your corporate role and you have this particular skill set that you can use, that you could use in a number of different ways, and maybe some of the fears or challenges that you had when you were thinking about it, many years before your early retirement opportunity.
Yeah, having spent 30 years at SAP, I would say probably 7, 8 years ago, I had gotten to the point where I said, "Hey, look, SAP is going to be my last job. I
Mhm.
spent so much time here. I've created a brand. So much time and effort into building the brand, and so much investment that I had made into SAP.
Mhm.
I don't want to start all over. I don't want to go to another corporation and have to prove myself at this point and work this hard and do all these other things." So I had kind of, decided, like, okay, this is going to be my last job.
Mhm.
So, let's write it out, and then, figure out what I do after that. And I would say what was a pivotal point for me was, I think it was maybe around 2019. It was certainly prior to the pandemic.
Mhm.
I got a call out of the blue uh, from a private equity firm, and the private equity firm, explained they had, I guess, found me on LinkedIn or through contacts or whatever, but they said, "Look, we, with another private equity firm, we both have 50% equity in this small software company, well, about a $400 million software company.
Mhm.
And in the software company, we just changed the entire leadership team. And so we brought in new leadership that we feel very comfortable with, proven leaders. But they said the only issue is that the new leadership we brought in, the CEO, the COO, the CFO, et cetera, none of them have software experience. And so we see your background. We see you spent time with this big, large, reputable software company. We see that you were in product management. We see that you were in sales and business development. We're looking to fill a board seat. And with this board seat, we're looking for someone who has software experience that can mentor the new leadership team, because they have no understanding about cloud technology and software and product management and solution management and all these things. And so you have a pretty good fit. And so this came out of, well, I really never thought about myself in this manner, never thought about my skills, didn't know these type of roles as board seats exist. I had no idea when they told me what the compensation package was for this. I thought, oh, wow, this, yeah, interesting. Right? And so part of that process, so I went through a number, maybe 3 or 4 interviews with different people at both of the reputable private equity firms. And so then I have to go back to SAP, because we have a compliance process that if you want to, in essence, get secondary employment or sit on the boards or whatever, you have to go get approval from SAP. And so I went through the process for compliance approval. Yep. And they came back and said no. They said, well, hey, this is a software company and they're a little bit into AI and we're getting AI. And so this may be a conflict of interest. And so we can't approve. So, okay, fine. But that's what, in essence, kind of was in the back of my head, like, oh, okay. Post-employment, post-SAP, this is opportunities that I may want to pursue, and so that was when I first became aware of that. And so, when the time came that I left SAP, those are the opportunities that I started to pursue.
So I love that you, because a lot of times you're speaking to something where you are what I like to deem as the corporate busyness, right? And we are so much into providing value to our employer and achieving and overachieving against the targets, but we don't I know I didn't really come up for air, right? I didn't really look around. That was not my profile. I was a company guy. I wanted to make sure that everything was going, but it's not until you have suitors from the outside that you go, oh, well, hang on a second. And to hear that you actually followed through the process, I think that's fantastic. But eventually it does open up this equity that you talked about, not just the retirement package, but you start to build this profile. It's something that's come up recently, because as you saw that, one of the other things that I don't think is taken, and this is a positive taken advantage of, is that the corporate world provides opportunities for innovation, like internal innovation. And I wonder what your experience is just with that in terms of skill development. Because you can make and do a lot of reps in order to perfect a skill, a craft. And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about what you saw during your experience in terms of being able to develop skills, network, these types of things within the corporate construct.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, I would say one of the many things of what makes SAP a fantastic company is the opportunity and investments that they make in, I would say, employee education. There is a library of online or in-person courses, curriculums that you may require. It may require your manager's approval, but it's everything from employee development, skills development, leadership development. All of these things are all available. And so to your point, as a busy employee who has, a ton of things that you need to achieve every day and calendars and travel and so forth, a lot of times, including myself, you would just kind of push those things aside or say, hey, end of the year when there's some downtime between Christmas and New Year's or whatever, I may register and take some of these courses, right? And then you register and now a meeting comes up or you got to be somewhere and you just push it off, right? In hindsight, I would say, many times that's the best education you get, and it's free. It's paid for by the employee. It's relevant because they want you to have these skills to make them a better employer to make them resonate and help provide their products and build more innovation. So I would say yes. If you're with a company now and they offer those education courses or curriculum or training, take advantage of them. Particularly, based on what we're seeing, what's happening now with AI. You look at the number of corporations that have made announcements that they're going to be laying off or cutting back on skills. Some jobs are probably not going to be preventable from being lost. But, if you have the opportunity, invest in AI, regardless of where you're in, if you have an opportunity, because it's clear that's the direction and that's the skills that corporations are going to be looking for, and probably the best chance to maintain your attractiveness to your current employer or other employers.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate you hitting on that point, because it is something that is important. It's the corporate construct. It's being able to leverage those resources that are available to you, and also practice new skills, because you are in a safe space to be able to do that. One other thing, Dion, that probably people don't also talk about. I know that there was a certain point in my corporate career where I was always, because of being in the sales organization, it was really about the outcomes. Nobody really cared if I did or worked 1 hour or if I worked 1,000 hours. Everybody just wanted to make sure that the numbers were on the board. And then that usually translated into me going to Hawaii and being able to be in the Catalyst program and all this kind of stuff. But if someone were to ask, there were probably moments where I was working more hours than I actually needed to. And sometimes you feel guilty about that. And now I realize that I didn't need to feel guilty about it, because it was part of the way that I was wired, or the way that part of my identity. And sometimes part of the reason that we listen to the podcast or watch the podcast is to realize, like, hey, I'm not the only one. Maybe it was just me. I talked to a lot of people and I know that it wasn't. But if upon reflection of now being on the other side of corporate, was there any moment now where you think, you know what, I probably didn't need to do all of those hours, but it was a part of what you thought you needed to do at that moment in time? There's no right or wrong answer. Just curious what your experience is.
Yeah, so my experience, I think, the vast majority of my time at SAP, my experience is it was outcome based, which was good. Yeah. I did have an experience where it was, I would say, more hourly based, if you will. And that was probably the worst time. The year and a half of my 30-year experience at SAP, I worked for a micromanager.
Yeah.
And it really had nothing to do with the outcomes and the deliverables and what I was providing. It was, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? Where is it? Where's this coming? Et cetera, if you will, right? And that was the one time at SAP that I seriously considered leaving SAP. And you hear the stories, or I was told by several HR leaders that the number one reason why an employee stays with a company or leaves a company is their direct manager, right? So if you have that trust with your direct manager, if you have that support with your direct manager, many times independent of the company, the product, you're going to stay. And if that doesn't exist, you're going to leave. And so I would say in that case, unfortunately, there are some micromanagers out there, right? And they, particularly in this environment where some employees are remote, they want to know, what are you doing? Where is this at? Et cetera, et cetera. But hopefully more are moving to, it's about outcomes, right? And so if it's outcomes and you can deliver your exceptional work in 2 hours and somebody else takes 8 hours, well, hey, at the end of the day, are we winning? Is the deal getting closed? Yeah. Is the customer happy, right? So
yeah, that's it. That's it for sure. Well, listen, I know we've talked about it, and you've talked about, and even in the beginning, I highlighted a couple of things. Everything from angel investor to board member, and I think you said in retirement, which, like I said, I don't really believe much about retirement. I think those that are meant to make impact will make impact regardless of years served, because the level of knowledge, experience, network that you have, and quite honestly, desire To do nothing is probably not an option that you want to choose. But I led in the beginning with Dion Graham Consulting. And so maybe you could talk to us a little bit more about who is it that you're actually helping today, in what capacity, because there's a lot of people always listening and watching us.
Yeah. No, yeah. So, as I mentioned, when I retired, what came to mind was board service. To your point, it will allow me to continue to be involved, stay on top of topics and industry trends, and also, spend my time on things that are important to me. So I joined 4 boards. Two of them are boards that I would say that are more of personal interest to me, of kind of where my passion is, or where I think I can give back. And the other ones are more, I would say, more corporate related, based on my expertise from the corporate environment. So one is APGA. So APGA is Advocates Professional Golf Association. So here in the United States, it's a professional golf tour, specifically to provide opportunities for underserved professional golfers, Black and brown golfers that typically don't have the opportunities to play on the PGA or the Korn Ferry. Not necessarily because they're not good enough, but to make it to that level, you need sponsorships. You need ability to practice and hone your skills 16 hours a day and play in events. And if you don't have sponsorships, you can't do that, because you can't try to do that and also have a job. And so APGA provides development and sponsorships. We have our own tour. There's prize money. So we have golfers, and we have golfers who are, very close to getting to the Korn Ferry or the PGA. And many of them have played on those tours through exceptions. So that's one organization. The other one is, I mentioned that I went to San Diego State University. So I'm on the advisory board of our business school, the Fowler College of Business. And so opportunity of meeting with business students that, was in my shoes 30, 40 years ago, and trying to figure out, what is it going to be like going into corporate America, and what type of skills or mentor opportunities. And so that's something that I enjoy. And then there's 2 corporate boards that I'm board members of. One is Inshore. Inshore is a services company that provides AI and digital applications in the SAP ecosystem. And so I help them from a strategy and guidance standpoint of how to expand their markets and nurture the relationships in the SAP ecosystem. And the one that I just joined recently as an advisor is MainPoint. MainPoint is a global supply chain consulting organization. And so going back to that conversation about how to help companies understanding how to drive or install seamless processes to reduce costs, to maximize profits. That's something that MainPoint does very, very well. And so I joined MainPoint as an advisor. So that's what I spend my time with, but I'm still retired, and I still have a lot of downtime. And, every now and then I'll take some naps in the afternoon. So I'm not
Well, I like to take naps in the afternoon too, my little siesta, but don't tell too many people, even though I know you are a global traveler. You've even been here into my adopted hometown not too long ago. So no, but that's really helpful because, whether it is something that are part of projects that are very close to your heart or close to your heart, as well as your over 3 decades of service and understanding ecosystems and solutions and sales and consulting. It's very helpful for me and for the Go Along family to understand how you are helping others today. So I guess, Dion, as we start to wrap things up, there's one thing that I've been very open with my Go Along family. I used to think that everything happened perfectly because I was one of these people that all the I's were dotted, all the T's were crossed, and I consistently just achieved. And so in a couple of years ago, life happened for me, right? In the beginning, I thought it happened to me, but it happened for me. And so when both my personal and business lives kind of took setbacks, I started realizing that, hey, listen, there's moments in life when you are like really, really on top of the top of the wave and everything seems amazing and you just don't really take much, because everything's going well. And then there's also these moments when you're kind of at the bottom of the valley. And when you're at the bottom of the valley, it seems like it's never ending. But what I realized and what happened for me was that they're both just moments. They're moments in time. But when you're in the valley, that's when you realize the people that care about you the most, that are willing to be there for you, that will really go above and beyond to help you. But no matter how much everyone else helps you, you have to have the conversation with yourself. You see the man in the mirror. And so I recognized that there were some things that I told myself, some affirmations, there were prayers, there were things that I had to get clear on. And now, as a reflection, it's something that I ask my guests, which is, if you can think about Dion 3 years from now, 3 years from now, right? You're in the retirement phase, quote unquote. This is air quotes. And by the way, everybody, if you have not seen the video version, you need to come and check out the video version, because Dion has this really, really cool, amazing logo. I'm not even going to tell you. You've got to come and see it. And Dion, please do not tell them what the logo says. They have to watch the video version. So if you're on the audio, go check out the video, and then you'll get to see how cool the logo is on Dion's on his shirt. But basically, what I'd like for you to think about is, what is the one message that you want to share with yourself to help you through those moments where maybe you're a little bit doubting or you have some trepidation, so that you come out okay through that moment in time? What's the one message you want to share with us?
Yeah, I certainly agree with that analogy. I would in essence say that loop is continuous. I firmly believe we are going through a storm, coming out of a storm. We're about to go into a storm, right? I mean, it's a continual. It's going to hit you. There's no way around that. That's kind of called life. And so I would say, the one thing that one is prayer. I mean, prayer is, first and foremost, you got to do that. But I would say the other thing is preparation, right? So even when you're doing well, and you're riding high, you need to prepare, as we always say, for that rainy day or for that time when that may not happen, right? I'm sitting here in retirement, and I realized, hey, most of my retirement is based on the stock market, right? And the stock market can crash, right? So do I prepare for that potential risk now, or do I wait and say, man, this thing happened, I didn't see it come? So I would say that the one thing is that you always have to prepare for, it's going to come a time when things are not going to work the way that they're working now, right? And so you need to have the support, as you mentioned. You need to have the support around you to get you around that. But I would say, as much as possible, prepare for that now. Just like corporations, right? They're constantly doing risk mitigation, right? Hey, what are the potential things that can happen in the next year or two, right? And those things happen. What plans do we have in place? I would say the same thing. I would say prepare for what happens if, this revenue that I'm getting doesn't come in? What happens if I'm on the notice for a layoff that I didn't see coming? Those type of things, right? You need to prepare for that.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic, and I appreciate it. So both prayer and preparation, that will continue to help move you through those moments that are the troughs, if you will. So Dion, and I mentioned to you before, I want to keep talking to you. I get to keep talking to you because I know how to get in touch with you even when the microphone shuts off. And so I know there's so many people that are watching, they're listening, and they're thinking to themselves, well, you know what? Well, Dion started out in LA, and his dad was, going to work every day, taught him the importance of getting up, going to work, taking care of your family. Your mother, at the same time, was taking care of household, and also 40 years within the California education system. As you mentioned, she helped to teach you the value of a penny through her theory and her actions. You got to learn the power of presence from your dad. Was able to understand, hey, listen, my son's got these games today, and I need to make sure this is a priority for me. And so that meant that he had to do more time at a different time. That's what he did. But you were able to bring those values into your system. You learned the importance of managing your expenses at home, being present with family. and being able to do that while developing and managing a global career that impacted, billions and billions of dollars, tens of thousands of employees across the globe. And now you're at a point where you can say, hey, listen, the equity that you build up in one particular company for over 30 years has now given you a platform to continue to share the knowledge, the experience, the know-how, and the passion with others through Dion Graham Consulting. And so I know that I get to keep talking to you. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, Billy, just ask him the question. So I'm going to just ask you the question, Dion. What's the best way for the Going Long family to connect with you, to find out more about what you're doing, or how they can get involved in your world?
Yeah, Rick, I don't have a website or anything. So the best way is just through my LinkedIn, and just send me a DM or send me a message through LinkedIn, and be happy to connect with anyone that have any questions or want to continue the conversation.
Fantastic. Well, Dion, I appreciate that. And because you said LinkedIn, there's something that I must add. And I know that my entire Going Long family, yeah, Billy, we know what you're going to say already, blah, blah, blah. We know how to do it. When you reach out to Dion, not if, but when you reach out to him, please make sure that you say, hey, Dion, loved your story. Already invested in the episode that you and Billy shared together, because guess what it's going to do? It's going to help you. It's going to help Dion to continue the conversation. So just make sure you leave him a personalized invite. We don't just do those little bland connect requests here. We send a name and let them know that you have already invested time together. So listen, with that, Dion, I just want to say really, really, really thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very, very fortunate to know you, to be able to continue to have a conversation and grow as a result of knowing you. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for deciding to invest your time with me and the entire Going Long family today. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Well, Billy, thank you for inviting me onto your platform, which is the top 1.5% of 3,000 platforms out there. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to come on and spend some time. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Not a problem. I think it's actually 3 million, which is actually even crazier. 3.9 million podcasts in this, which I think is just insane. But everybody keeps coming back, so we appreciate it. So thanks, Dion. Really, really appreciate it.